So I'm not going to run for office in 2018. That's not where I can make the biggest difference. My fight is not just in California. My fight is in removing Donald Trump from office and from power. And that starts with taking the House back in 2018. I'm putting $30 million behind Next Gen America's youth organizing program to unleash the full political power of young voters. They're now the largest block of eligible voters in America, capable of swinging elections on their own, and they are horrified by what's happening in Washington, D.C.
Hello, everyone. We are here at the Brain Institute right in the heart of downtown Las Vegas. So what we have here is that Tom Steyer held a town hall event, like he's doing this all over the country, including here in Las Vegas, as a way to get enough voters to basically do everything he can to impeach the current president. So as you can see here, we can turn on the page, the need to impeach. You know, he's got a lot of signatures, he's got a lot of support, and he's trying to mobilize the young people. Right, young people are people that are really badly affected if there's massive deportations and there's a merit-based system. Yeah, they're the ones that are really getting in and are struggling in this economy. So he's mobilizing them, and I think very likely he's holding this town hall meeting to benefit his own causes, his own interests. This is why I believe he's a large push for climate change, because from what I've heard, the climate change agenda benefits Wall Street's financiers like Tom Steyer. And I've asked him some questions, and believe it or not, Jon Ralston was there as well. So much for being part of the Nevada Independent, right? And I actually told Tom Steyer that you are not going to turn our state into California. Hello, everyone. I am Cyrus Hojati. I'm continuing this town hall interview that I've had with Tom Steyer. And basically, what really stuns me is that this individual, believe it or not, you know, he talks about how horrible Trump is, right? And how he needs to be impeached. Now, what really gets me is the fact that why has he not talked a lot about Obama, about the allegations, about the scandals about Barack Obama, and how Obama has really, in some cases, abandoned the middle and working classes? How come he never talks about that, about a lot of dark money that he has received? So basically, when you see a lot of people that just go and attack one side, you know that these people have kind of a biased agenda, and they are misleading the general public, basically. Now, to be all fair, not everything that the current president has done I really have admired. I'm not too much of a fan of his foreign policy and a few other issues. But certainly I can give him the credit that he has met and he has basically succeeded many of his campaign promises. So let me ask Mr. Steyer a question about some important issues that both sides have ignored. And when I ask him a question, I don't do it in a very confronting tone or words, because you have to play the game right and correctly and efficiently. So let's see how it goes.
Yeah, hi. My name is Cyrus Ojati, and one of the issues I'm very concerned about is Wall Street and banking. We were one of the hardest hit. Nothing has been talked about putting banksters in jail, taxing Wall Street transactions, and regulating them. But another thing, because I am really sick and tired of...
See, the audience is actually approving this so far. Wow. This is something like both sides can actually agree on.
These wobbly home prices all across the world. But another thing I want to talk about, you come from California, and can you tell me about what do you really think California is well run? There's a massive exodus of people leaving the state. There's a lot of people frustrated with Jerry Brown and Kevin De Leon. And I moved here from California. I moved here to establish my dream of building new, exciting, beautiful neighborhoods, because I think the urban planning of California is a disgrace. And just to let you know, I'm the son of two Iranian immigrants who came here legally, and I believe it should be done through a merit-based system. Thank you.
So, let Those are two.
Now you see how I didn't do this in a very confronting manner, accusatory, and in fact a large part of the audience agrees. This is a left-wing forum, basically, depending on how you look at it. Basically, it's ironic how these lefties talk about big corporations and dark money, but yet they have a guy out here who is a billionaire and basically who is putting a lot of dark money into the system and hasn't talked a lot about Wall Street and the corrupt banks and how a need that we need to cap CEO pay. See, this is a problem with the Democratic Party, the left. They have abandoned the workers and the anti-corporate abuse power, and they have shifted away towards globalism and cultural Marxism. And that's how they attract voters, through fear and anxiety. Okay? This is how they do it. And this is how that they have used this to protect the special interests. And meanwhile, they constantly say, well, the GOP is scapegoating certain people to protect the rich person. Yes, that's certain to a true extent. But a lot of people believe that this cultural Marxism, that this massive immigration that I've spoken to you about in a previous video about MGM resorts, is sponsored by large corporations. Okay? And I just recently did a massive demonstration and how Jim Murren and how shady deals and everything he has done. So let's continue.
At least two big questions that I'd love to address. One was Wall Street, and one was housing, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So let me talk for a second about those two things, and banks. So I don't know if you know this, but my wife and I started a community bank that makes thousands of low-income housing loans to people in California, in Oregon, and in Washington, because we know how much of a problem housing is for people, and we know that there's a grave shortage of every kind of housing, but in particular of low-income housing.
Okay, so first of all, it's great that he has started an alternative bank, and I do appreciate that, but I'm still very suspicious that he is part of the large mega banks that are largely controlling and manipulating the world. But what he needs to talk about is, why is there a housing shortage in California? Could it be because of the fact that all these growth boundaries, these growth restrictions on height, density, or spreading out, open space preserves, the CEQA laws that have been established in the 1970s, could it be because all of the housing shortage is largely attributed to that? Because think about it, the housing crisis in California emerged in the 1970s. That's when it started to get out of hand. And that's when these laws started to take effect. Now, with all due respect, a lot of it is not just because of that. Some of it is just geographical boundaries, such as oceans, mountains, a lot of different things. Then, of course, you have to understand Prop 13 has a role. But then, another reason why housing is such a shortage, because if you don't increase supply, you have a lot of people moving in. And where a lot of these people have been coming from, and still coming from foreign countries. Duh! And what do you think it has to do with our housing supply? Well, it jacks up housing supply, because you keep pointing out we're a nation of immigrants, but you don't have enough housing. That's what's causing housing prices to surge. Do you think a lot of this anti-immigrant sentiment solely has to do because of the fact that some white Americans are fearing to be a minority? Not necessarily. A lot of it has to do with basic supply and demand economics. And it's not just wages, it's resources. And housing is one of them. Now, to also be fair, one of the reasons why housing prices are being jacked up is because of the lending climate, the interest rates, banking system suppressing foreclosures, but also a lot of it has to do with foreign buyers. These wealthy individuals coming from Arab countries, the petrodollar, as well as our trade policy. Thanks to China trade, a lot of these wealthy Asians are buying up homes across the Silicon Valley and places like Irvine. So this is why I believe we need to tax these foreign buyers. But let him continue.
And one of the things that we noticed is that Wall Street banks paid something like $240 billion worth of fines after the housing bust in 2008, which I know in Vegas really, really hard. But no one went to jail. So one of those numbers is wrong. If you did $240 billion worth of damage to the United States of America and Americans, somebody should have gone to jail. And I think that we get completely different behavior if a bunch of those people had gone to jail going forward. So one of the things when I was talking about criminal justice, it seems as if you're in a corporation, you can do anything and you just pay a fine. Maybe a big fine, but you just pay a fine. And you can't look at our opioid crisis with literally, I think, 88,000 people died of drug overdoses last year. 88,000. That's, 55,000 Americans died in the Vietnam War. Last year, 88,000 died of drug overdoses, and no one's going to go to jail. But people are going to make billions and billions of dollars selling those drugs. So I definitely agree there has to be a different way of thinking about criminality in the corporate world. I think that's unquestionably true. And in terms of housing, look, we have a housing shortage in the places where people want to move. California has 2 million too few housing units, and so it hits everybody in the entire state. The question is, how do we think about housing? How do we make it possible for people to live? This is also about, when I said the right to earn a living wage, people don't earn enough to pay their rent, to pay their healthcare costs, and to pay the cost of going to school after high school. So there is a really big question here about who is getting the benefit from our society. And it comes out in housing, it comes out in so many different things about justice.
So one of the things I just wanted to respond to that, believe it or not, he just talked about the problems, but he didn't really offer any solutions. It kind of seems like he knows the problems, he doesn't want to talk about the solutions, and he just wants to bring up the issues because he knows that it will draw support and it will tap into their anxiety. But meanwhile, the followers are just seeming to believe that somehow he has the solutions, even though that, based on what I just heard, he doesn't have the solutions. Now, of course, one of the issues is that Trump so far has not talked about regulating the banks as much as he should have. And he has currently no plans right now to do so. Now, of course, we have to wait and see to regulate and to do something with banking reform. However, I am proud the fact that Steyer did talk about banking reform and how people should have been held accountable for their mistakes that they've done 10 years ago. The issue is that Tom Steyer has not talked about this in his top policy platform. His top policy platform is to rein in climate change and deal with immigrant rights and deal with things with women reproductive rights, even though that at the end of the day, when it comes to issues politically speaking, what matters is, can the people put food on their tables? And certainly banking and finance is a huge important role. And of course, he doesn't talk about why wages have been coming down. Has he talked about our trade policies? Has he talked about the union busting? Has he ever admitted that at least immigration has a role? Now, worst of all, he has not addressed the concerns I've talked about of California. He has not talked about really how badly and how dysfunction the state is being run in Sacramento with Kevin De Leon, who tried to make our state a sanctuary state to protect criminal aliens, who admitted that half of his family is eligible for deportation because he admitted that his family used fake Social Security numbers. You see? But they talk about separating families, but they don't tell you how it's unfair that people who have done it legally, people like my parents who have contributed a lot to society, have not gone a dime on welfare, and the people, on the other hand, who have taken fake identities to get a job. This is causing a lot of problems, but yet they keep saying, and they dress it up, that migration is beautiful, that we should basically accept as many as we can. About the fact that he's banning plastic straws, about the fact that taxes are so high, and they're disproportionately affecting the middle and lower classes. And by the way, this is kind of misleading how he says that the Trump tax plan only benefited the rich. That's not necessarily true. A lot of the wealthy people that live in California and live in these tax states like New Jersey and New York, now they cannot use their state income taxes to reduce for their federal. And now they're not getting tax credit for housing. And a lot of those people are in the top 5%. But he doesn't tell you that. He's giving you the kind of anxiety so that you can basically vote differently in the polls. And I suspect that it's very, very likely that he's doing this to gather support and benefit his own causes.
I don't want my state to be like California.
Fine. You have had your hand up, I noticed.
Is just going to piggyback off of a fact that you said earlier on. We have to win many battles. And unfortunately, this battle is not going to end at 2018 midterm election for Nevada. It's going to continue to the 2020 census, where we are currently having a fight and question, are you a citizen? Which is going to deter many people, many immigrants, even permanent residents, from answering their doors to answer the question that they're living in that community. The census is what brings funds to community. Growing up in a low income community in California, in South Central Los Angeles, and then coming to Nevada and seeing it, we need to, how do you think, Tom, is the best way to combat this question from not even appearing when 2020 comes?
So, obviously.
Okay, so wow, what a load of baloney. Okay, so this activist, first of all, I've seen him many times around the neighborhood, and I get so ticked off when they ignore me, because when they ignore me, it kind of shows that they're losing, obviously. But anyway, he runs an organization called Mi Familia Vota. Wow. Oh my gosh. It's like catering to the Spanish people. I'm sick of these identifiable groups. And by the way, I just wanted to point out that these groups, it doesn't surprise me that they have connections to George Soros. Because, of course, Soros does found the National Council of La Raza, Black Lives Matter, and so forth. And, of course, it's really there to just cater to the Spanish-speaking individuals, to bring in anxiety and tell them that, oh, well, we are for you, and we have to get out there and fight the evil racists or whatever and all this stuff. And by the way, it doesn't surprise me that Steyer is heavily connected to Soros, although Steyer is like the Soros of California, just like Jim Murren is the Soros of our state. And the only thing is that Steyer does not really, as far as I know, use violence or funds organizations like Antifa that does that, or doesn't come out in a Maxine Waters approach to use violence. But I think that Steyer should actually confront and hold Maxine Waters accountable, considering what just recently happened to Ted Cruz. But anyway, this guy thinks he's so entitled. Yeah, his people can just come in. They're not citizens. They should be treated as first class, that they should get resources. Hey, you do have some rights, but the American government is for and by the American citizens, okay? There should be a difference if you're a citizen. It's not fair to me and my parents who became citizens, okay? And if you were a citizen born in this country to parents who came here illegally, you should not be a citizen. Birthright citizenship is wrong. And I think the census question should also ask that, believe it or not. So you should not be entitled to resources, and that's the best way to get rid of these unlawful arrivals or invaders, whatever you want to call them, is to trim out their benefits so they can self-deport. That's the best way to do it, okay? And I'm really glad that they're panicking about this census question, because you should not have congressional representatives like Dina Titus, who I just confronted, like Cortez Masto, like Ruben Kihuen, who cater to these non-legal arrivals. It's just so sickening and entitled that they think that they can do this, that they can get away with this load of crap. It's absolutely unbelievable. But, of course, the reason that they are panicking is that they know that Congressional District 3 and 4, that's being run by Crescent Hardy and Danny Tarkanian, they know that if the boundaries get redrawn and Dina Titus's district expands, that they know that the 2 districts will certainly have a much higher chance of ensuring a Republican victory. So even though if those 2 candidates do not win, which I think they'll likely will, the fact is that it will likely give them a higher chance to win in 2020 or 2022, okay? But the resources should be given and drawn to the citizens first. And this guy, he thinks he's so entitled that he deserves rights and that he can just walk in and do whatever he wants. And they don't even give you facts about how they're correct. This is how disgusting they are. But this is how you fight them. You fight them with facts and you fight them in the polls. And then you embarrass them.
This was an attempt to prevent people from filling out the census forms because they wanted to change the way the money got allocated in the United States of America and to keep it away from those states and those neighborhoods. So the only thing that we can do in California, I don't know what's going on in Nevada, but both people are trying to get that question struck through the courts from going on the census form.
Oh my gosh, you guys are just so desperate. You guys are so embarrassed. You know, it's really because of the fact that California has one of the highest non-citizen populations in the country. And of course, I think they should include the anchor babies. And they're going to lose a lot of seats. They're going to lose a lot of power. This is one of the reasons why the left loves all this immigration. Because, I mean, yeah, they can use them for voter fraud, but they can get support either way. They can canvass, or they can fill up their population centers to get more support, and they can get more seats in the congressional house. So when you look at all these seats, like Maxine Waters, and the list goes on. So they are fearing that they are losing power. Wow, how disappointing. All right, so right now I'm going to actually talk to Mr. Ralston, and I like his personality in all fairness, but the thing is he calls himself a Nevada independent, but at the same time he is with this leftist billionaire Tom Steyer. And that really doesn't make me feel like he's an independent. And of course, you know, he doesn't get a lot of corporate sponsors, but he gets a lot of donations. But a lot of those donations are from leftist causes, and they can range from a lot of people, from MGM Resorts, which, by the way, I'm going to confront him about MGM Resorts, but it's very unlikely that he will. He says he's done it, but it's unlikely he will do investigation because he gets funding. And he gets a lot of donations, like ranging from the Henderson mayor, Deborah Marsh. So let me speak to him and see how he responds. Hi, how's it going? Good, good. I was just wondering, yesterday I was at the Route 91 incident, and I held a poster, and I talked about that we should do investigation about how MGM handled it, and I think that Mr. Murren should resign and be held accountable possibly. So will you do a story about that? Because
we've done stories about all people being angry with that. Yeah.
Okay, because I don't think Murren is really doing a good job. He started the paid parking thing, and I think MGM and Caesars has to be broken up. Okay, so basically, I don't know why he didn't want to last the conversation with me for more than 40 seconds. So I don't know, maybe he's kind of suspicious, maybe he's kind of frightened or something. I really don't know. Now, I have to see proof that he's done stories about it. I'm not sure. But of course, the bottom line is that from what I've seen, I feel that Ralston is part of the establishment. And it wouldn't surprise me if right now he's trying to support and lift up Jacky Rosen and Steve Sisolak. And by the way, a lot of polls I've seen, they've interviewed more Democrats, and Laxalt and Heller is still ahead in the polls, believe it or not. And I'm quite optimistic that they're going to win. But the issue is that he should have done a lot of investigation about Murren, considering what I did recently at the Route 91 one-year anniversary. Okay, so this is one of the things. But again, where is the proof? Where is he going after these individuals? Now, you know, Mr. Ralston, many times he's criticized wealthy people like Steve Wynn, and of course Sheldon Adelson, not to mention that he owns and runs the Las Vegas Review-Journal. And again, I'm not necessarily supporting Adelson and everything that he has done. But nevertheless, of course, I find him less controversial, and certainly Steve Wynn, than Mr. Murren. But of course, this guy, Mr. Ralston, who claims himself as independent, he's kind of taking sides, okay? And I wouldn't be surprised if he was the guy that helped pump Harry Reid all those times, which, based on what I've seen, I think he's probably one of the worst senators in American history. So let's talk to this individual, Mr. Steyer. I've got a face-to-face interview with him.
California is in a mess. There's a massive exodus of people leaving the state. I mean, you have to understand that Jerry Brown and Kevin DeLeon's not been doing a good job. You know, taxes are high, the highest gasoline prices in the states. You know, part of the reason we have a
Look at his face. Wow.
housing shortage because the process takes a long time. They just ruled that SB 54 is unconstitutional. And we have lots of people that have been killed, that should have been killed, if you know what I'm talking about. So maybe the reason why people have resentment with your causes because they look at California, the highest poverty rate in the state. You know, I mean, they used to be the party of anti-big business decades ago. I still agree with them on Wall Street, but when I look at California, I'm very frustrated about what's going on, and I'm very glad to leave the state. And
Well, I'm a proud Californian, so I love California. I will agree with you. We have a ton of issues. I think that
and so is my mom, to be fair.
a ton of issues. I think that in California, the people you're talking about are trying to address those issues, and we do have a functioning democracy.
Okay.
So for all of the issues that we do have, and they definitely exist, starting with inequality, it's
the highest.
Huge way.
It's the higher than
I
here.
understand that. But so I believe that they are trying to actually address it in all ways. Now, are they there? They're really far from there. There are big problems in California, but I believe
Then hold Jerry Brown and Gavin Newsom accountable. I mean, talk to these people, and there's so much anger and frustration. You go look it on YouTube. You've seen the videos from Grindel 61 and many people.
I haven't, but I do in fact live in California. I have spent a year and a half studying inequality specifically in California to see how complicated and interwoven it is to the whole society. And it's part of the reason that I believe that we really have to have a different relationship between people in the country and between the government and the people.
But two last things. Number one, I hope that my state, Las Vegas, does not become like California or Los Angeles and bring the problems here. I really don't. And second of all, you talk about housing shortage. It's hard to build housing up to the sky or out because of all of the requirements and a lot of different things. Well, then change that. There should be skyscrapers in Long Beach, in Monterey, in San Jose. There should be more supply.
There's no question that the way we're going to have to build going forward is much more concentrated and much more open.
But do you see why immigration is important to me? Maybe if we can limit it, there would be less demand and there would be less upward pressure on housing. Maybe that's why. We look at Irvine. A lot of foreign buyers coming in and just chopping everything up.
There's a lot of issues in California, but I do believe, and it's going to take a new way of thinking.
Okay.
I agree with that. But it's also a place that people still want to come to. There may be massive exodus, but there's massive immigration too. California keeps growing because people want to live there, and that's part of the issue there, is how to accommodate people who are coming in from overseas, but from abroad, but also from other parts of the United States.
Okay, well,
Thanks so much.
my family...
Okay, so basically he spent a large part of his time talking about how great California is, but the issue is he has not talked about a specific policy or law that Sacramento has done and he has been very critical of. Notice how he doesn't do that. He doesn't talk about that Jerry Brown and Kevin DeLeon has made a lot of horrible decisions. He doesn't talk about that. How they're banning straws, plastic bags, how they're no longer making it a felony about HIV, all these ridiculous laws about promoting homosexuality, about how they try to put in illegal aliens to government boards. He doesn't talk about this. Notice about this, how he's shielding California because he knows it's very likely that's making his causes look worse. Okay? When you see people talk about how they want to improve things, look at the area where they have lived and look at their track record. Then you see who these people are, believe it or not. So this is one of the things. Now, he hasn't talked about, well, the issues that I've pointed out, immigration, housing, specifically laws, whether these ideas are practical. He says, well, we have to get them done, we have to change things. But he has not fully addressed or fully agreed to my points. Now, to be fair, then again, he did respond in a very respectful manner compared to other people I've seen. But then again, he has not really addressed the issues. And so this is where you have to really understand that this is a billionaire from California trying to impose policy all across the country. Think about that. He probably wants to make the entire country look like San Francisco when you have needles and human feces all over the street. Thank God you really don't see that in Las Vegas. Sure, we have problems like that, but it's nowhere near as bad as cities like San Francisco and Los Angeles, especially with the taxation. My gosh. It's just mind-boggling. I mean, just wait until you see if he runs for president in 2020. It's going to be really, really interesting to see how he has a chance. But anyway, it was great to see the person. I really appreciated his time, in all fairness. And spread this video. Get this video out there, because you have to understand that this is possibly a blueprint that's being done all over the world.